Hi everybody, and welcome to Yarn Talk, where we highlight the latest knitting news, trends, and interview designers every 2 weeks.
I'm Allison, and this week my designer crush is Emily Ringelman.
And I'm Heidi, and in Knitting in the News, I share the story of two artists who are using machine knitting to create scarves knit with people's actual brainwaves.
And I'm Leah, and as a part of the Midwestern Knits blog tour, Allison and I are going to talk about independent publishing in the knitting world.
Leah and I are here to talk a little bit about indie publishing in the knitting world because my book, Midwestern Knits, just launched on Monday, and Leah is in the process of getting one started.
Yes, so Great Northern, which is a collection I'm working on with Teresa Gregorio, we're launching a Kickstarter on probably around September 9th, and I'm just really curious to hear from you how your whole process went.
Yeah, I think it's really strange that we both are diving into books, and so we're both really in a unique position to talk authoritatively about this crazy world that we're publishing in.
Yeah, the whole process.
So the first thing that we did, obviously, is identify a market within the knitting community, and that's one great thing about indie publishing is you can find those tiny niche markets and really, you know, exploit their fan base to get them to pay you money for a great idea, yes. Which is what I did with Midwestern Knits. It was easy too because it's a region. There's obviously a ton of us living in the Midwest, proud Midwesterners, designers, dyers. So I kind of built it with the idea that you know, we can use this you know, vast world and really pay tribute to the community, whereas you used a cult favorite.
Yes, and thanks to the internet, which thank goodness for the internet, we can reach everyone in the world who is a fan of Twin Peaks and is also a knitter. And there's a lot of overlap, luckily, and especially because the show features a lot of wonderful knitwear, we thought this was just a perfect fit. And I've been wanting to work on a collection like this for a long time, and I'm glad that we're finally making it happen.
What's great about independent publishing is you have total freedom and total control over the whole process. So you can really just make it very focused in on what you're passionate about. I know with the Midwestern Knits, we took that from one tiny conversation between my co-editor Karina Spencer and I at TNNA a couple years ago, and now we have a book. To follow that whole process through is just unbelievably rewarding.
That's so cool. Having all this freedom, as we do in independent publishing, can be a blessing and a curse because you do get complete freedom to do whatever you want, but you also have to make all the decisions. You have to focus on not only designing the collection, which has to be beautiful and wonderful, but also promotion and all the publishing and the layout, and I mean the list goes on. And with the exception of possibly tech editing, which you should have someone else do, you can really do almost every single element of it, which can be a lot of work. Yeah,
it definitely is a lot of work. And when it works, like the response to Midwestern Knits has been so amazing and overwhelming. It's great. But on the other hand, there is the possibility that your baby that you have birthed from infancy and made every single decision for won't resonate with audiences, and then you only have yourself to blame.
Yeah, and then you have a stack of books in your corner forever.
That's
so sad. I don't want that to happen. So at the stage of the process that I'm in, Teresa and I have our designs sketched and swatched for the most part, but we still have a lot of knitting to do. We're scheduling photo shoots, we are trying to build up our newsletter list, and there's all sorts of things that I'm working on at this end. But I'm curious, once the book comes out, what do I have to look forward to?
Oh my gosh, just total madness. I had to fly to Kansas City last week to help where Karina Spencer is, to help package all the books to ship out. Working with download codes, we were working with Ravelry to get individual download codes for every book. I physically carried books on the plane back with me. And now we're both hosting tons of knit-alongs, tons of a blog tour, actual events in local yarn stores. It's just complete madness.
I can't wait.
I know. I feel like the hard part is kind of over, like the book actually exists.
Yeah.
So that's really
gotta be
nice.
huge.
Yeah. And that too was just like a scary process, dealing with publishers and working on, you know, once you have a budget and then things get crazy, like our book jumped 40 pages from what we thought it was going to be. So it's just, I mean, it's just every day is a new challenge.
It's a non-stop roller coaster ride.
It definitely is. But I really wouldn't have it any other way. So be sure to, you know, take a look at Midwestern Knits if you haven't yet. Be sure to support indie publishing wherever, and wherever you see it. Because whatever you love in this weird knitting community that we live in, there's a book for you.
Rosemary Hill's Chilkat cowl is a great skill builder if you're looking to practice some lace and jogless stripes in your knitting. This extra tall cowl is designed to fold in on itself, trapping warmth close to the skin despite its lacy structure. I've been really into drawstrings and knitwear recently, and the Chilkat is finished with a braided drawstring and tassels for a casual contemporary feel that I really like for fall.
When I started sifting through submissions for Midwestern Knits, one design rose above the pack. Designer Laura Ricketts had a brilliant idea: turn the silly way Michiganders use their hands to tell people where they live into stranded colorwork mittens, one hand with the Upper Peninsula, the other with the Lower. Adding an X to mark your hometown in a contrasting color is even easier than pointing to your bare palm. Michigander mitts are sure to bring a smile to any Michigander, and I can't wait to cast them on. In fact, I'm hosting a knit-along for these mittens this fall. YarnTalk is part of the Midwestern Knits blog tour, so find out more information about Midwestern Knits and Michigander mitts at YarnTalkShow.com. And be sure to snag a copy of Midwestern Knits at MidwesternKnits.com or on Ravelry.
Episodes back, I shared the story of a man who's working on realizing his vision of creating a knitted short film. As a knit designer myself who's fascinated by the maker movement, I get really excited when I come across these stories that take place at the intersection of knitting and making. A lot of these stories involve machine knitting, and this story is no exception. Artist duo Varvara Gulyayeva and Mark Hannett have developed a project called Knitic, an open hardware which controls a knitting machine via Arduino. According to their website, they don't use a floppy emulation or knitting machine's keypad simulation. Instead, Knitic is the new brain of a knitting machine that allows real-time control over the needles. Basically, this means that one can knit as long as they want and modify the pattern on the fly. One of this duo's projects that has caught my eye in particular is scarves knit using actual brainwaves. So they capture brainwaves, specifically brain cortical activity, and record it, and then using the Knitic machine, they translate those brainwaves into a two-color finished knit piece. After listening to classical music, subjects' brainwave patterns are captured using an EEG headset and then translated into the two-color knitting that comes out of the knitting machine. In some ways, when I was reading about this story, it made me think a lot of episode 3, the guy who made the knit short film, the whole translating data into stitches on a knitting machine. But there's something kind of extra special and unique about creating a knit piece based on the actual humming of the human body. So if you want to learn more about the technical details behind how they capture brainwaves, visit Knitic.com.
Holy chevrons, Batman! Stephen West's new shawl is just what I look for in a new knitting project. With garter stitch stripes and yarn over increases, this shawl is an easy breezy knit with fabulous details and stays true to Stephen's wacky aesthetic. Also, I cannot resist a good chevron. You can find Holy chevrons in Stephen West's Ravelry store.
designer crush is Midwestern Knits designer Emily Ringelman, whose Blowing Snow cardigan is just one of the classic and innovative designs that she's come out with the past couple years, when she's not busy being a scientist. Enjoy!
This is the floof.
Yay! Hello, Emily and the floof. That's a hell of a cat you've got there. Well, Emily Ringelman, thank you so much for joining us here on YarnTalk.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and the floof.
And the floof. She left.
I'm glad that we got the floof in before the floof like crawled on your face or something.
Yeah, she's very cuddly.
Yeah. So we're kind of talking Midwestern knits here today, and your Blowing Snow cardigan is gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I know that we talked a lot about the yarn that you had envisioned for the sweater. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. I mean, I think we had talked about just white originally, but we thought boring. So
yeah. We worked really hard with Happy Go Lucky Yarns here with me actually in Chicago to get you something that kind of resembled ice. You know, without it looking like a baby blanket, which was a challenge. And kind of struggled with where it even landed, actually, right?
Yeah, well, initially it looked like I was making a baby blanket just because of how I constructed the sweater. So I got so nervous. I was like, oh, everyone's going to hate this. It's going to look silly. But you said, keep going. So I kept going. It turned out way better than I thought it would.
Yeah, and I know as a fellow designer, once you get something in your head, you can't get it out of your head. And you're sure that that's what the person is going to see. All right, so now that that's off your plate, now that Midwestern Knits is off your plate, Blowing Snow cardigan in the book, in the actual book and in the books, what's your next project? What are you working on over there?
Well, as you know, I'm working on something for Holly Knits for fall winter. I know. Something fancy, kind of fun.
Very fun. Very fun. Yep. Anything else?
I've got some stuff coming down the pipeline for knit picks, actually.
Nice. Yeah. I love working with knit picks.
So do I. They're awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Well, great. Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time and the fluffs for joining us here on YarnTalk. We really appreciate it. I know you're one of my favorite designers to work with Holly Knits. So put a face to a name over here. A big thank you to Emily for joining us this week. And if you're loving her Blowing Snow cardigan as much as we are, be sure to go to YarnTalkShow.com and leave a comment on this post for your chance to win a copy.
Thank you so much for watching Yarn Talk.
Don't forget to comment if you've got anything to say about this episode. Use hashtag YarnTalk on social media to get in touch. And don't forget to subscribe for even more episodes. And if you want a chance to win Emily Ringelman's Blowing Snow cardigan from Midwestern Knits, be sure to go to YarnTalkShow.com and leave a comment on this episode's post.
World.
Well, that was pretty
exciting. How was it turned on? Let me turn it on.
He had no idea what he was doing.
Poor guy, he's probably sweating his balls off.